my dad founded this business. He was the first one that started it up there in 1996, kind of pioneered the whole glacier kayaking in that area. And he took thousands of people in his career of guiding there. Unfortunately, he ended up passing away from cancer in 2020. And one of the things that we really are so honored to be able to do is just continue his legacy of crafting this awesome experience and this awesome trip to share with other people, and just seeing how much fun he had with it. We kind of get to continue his legacy and continue sharing the beauty of Alaska with people, continuing on what he started back so long ago.
Joining me today are tour operators that specialize in guided hikes and kayaking to the Grewingk Glacier. Spenser and Jensen will share some interesting stories from the trips they have guided in the past and give you the lowdown on what to expect on the excursion. Let's dive in. Welcome, Spenser and Jensen.
Thanks for having us on, Lucas. This is super fun.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to learn more about what you guys offer in terms of tours, as well as what you offer in terms of accommodations at your place. So you guys have been operating Three Moose Kayak Adventures as a family for the past 25 to 30 years out of Halibut Cove. From all of those years of operations, the first thing I want to hear about, because I love starting almost every podcast with this question, what is one of the most iconic wildlife encounters you've had between Halibut Cove or when you're out on your excursions and making your way back to the glacier? Do you have a story or two that really kind of stands front and center in terms of wildlife encounters that you've had?
Oh yeah, I mean, we got plenty of wildlife over there. I mean, on the land you got everything from the bears, the porcupines, and then out in the cove, there are many mornings we'll wake up and just see 50 to 60 otters in a raft hanging out, along with whales, orcas. We've seen a lot of different wildlife that is around the area. Yeah, as far as the story, I don't know if you have.
I think as far as stories go, bears, we got all the plethora of wildlife out there. But we have plenty of bear stories. I think the one that kind of sticks out in my mind the most is we were just starting a tour. I had 6 people with us. We had just left. We were ready to go. And we get about, maybe 15 minutes up the trail, and I hear some rustling up in the trees. And I look up to our left, and there's 3 bear cubs just sitting in the tree, probably 5 feet off of the tree, or 5 feet off of the trail. And I was I saw them and I was okay, hang on, guys. And I turned back to my clients. I'm here, wait here, guys, because my mind immediately goes to where's mom? And the last thing I want to do is get in between cubs and mom on the trail. And so I go and I'm okay, here, wait here. And, let's walk back down the trail, see, make sure, see if the cubs will come back down. And so we go back hiking, 10 minutes back down the trail to give the cubs some space to climb down the tree, and come back 10 minutes later, they're still up in the tree. And I'm oh my gosh, okay. At this point, we are kind of on a schedule because we do want to get the whole excursion in, see the glacier and all that. And so I'm okay, I'm going to go see if I can find where mom's at, because I have yet to see mom at this point. So I'm you guys wait here. I kind of creep up the trail very slowly and surely, and just around the bend, mom's off on the right side of the trail. And I'm this is probably the worst, I guess, outcome of this, because cubs are on one side, mom's on the other, and I'm we got to go right through them I'm we're not doing this. So I ended up taking we're on a part of the trail that switched back up the mountain. And I'm okay, guys, we're going on an adventure. And we ended up just bushwhacking straight up. And at this point, a few other hikers on the trail had came up on our tail end, and I'm oh, hang on, there's mama bear and cubs, and we don't want anybody dying over here. So the other people that weren't on our trip kind of got a little freaked out. And they're can we just hang out with you? And I'm yeah, go on. And they ended up getting real freaked out, and they're yo, let me do you mind if we just tag along with you guys? And I was yeah, no problem. And so we ended up just bushwhacking through Devil's Club, and it was an adventure. But mama and cubs were safe up in the tree, and didn't disturb them too bad. But it's always an adventure. And I think Spencer's got
well, the bear adventures aren't always just in the trails. we're located right in 5 acres in the middle of a state park. And so, more often than not, they'll end up finding their way down into our place as well, which, is usually no big deal, but we like to kind of, set our territory. And so there's one morning a few years back, this summer specifically, we had our dog up with us. And, this is our Alaskan guard dog, our 14-pound white Bichon Frise. And, he was kind of the guy that we kept around for the bears. And so it was one morning, it was like 7 a.m. We were up making our coffee. Breakfast was going. And we look up, and right out of our front window is this black bear right in our little backyard, going through our garden. And so, our first thought is we got to get this black bear out of here. So we, open the door, start yelling at it. Our first line of defense is, of course, our pots and pans. So, we're chucking them at them. And this bear is just not moving, like it is standing its ground. And so, my dad looked at me, and I remember vividly, he looks at me and he goes, "Get Blue." And most dogs, they know certain words. They know, squirrel, treat, but Blue, he knows the word bear. And so we yell, "Blue, there's a bear." And immediately this dog wakes up from his slumber and chases after this bear. And this bear bolts and just takes off running. I mean, I remember seeing the bear like get up and fall backwards and take off with this 14-pound white dog at its heel, just chasing him off into the wilderness. And then at that point, 5 minutes goes by, 10 minutes goes by, and we're just convinced that, well, there goes Blue. He was a good dog while it lasted, but that's the end of him. And but then we see on the beach, the bear pops out, and there's Blue, like 5 feet behind him. They're just trotting like old buddies at this point. I was just like, what is this? So I yelled. I was like, "Blue!" And I kid you not, to this day, this is exactly what happened. They both stopped. They both looked at me, turned, shared one final look, and then Blue just turned around and slowly walked back to us. And it was just such a wild experience. And to this day, Blue doesn't come up with us anymore, but the bears, I think, remember that because we get a lot less of them nowadays.
Yeah, so your guys' stories are funny to me because I could almost tell the same stories in terms of my encounters with black bear, only I don't have a dog. That's the one difference, but I've had plenty come around the place that we've had to scare away. We've had 3 bear actually enter our place when we were building, which is a bit unnerving when you don't expect it, especially when it wakes up someone who's in a bed right by the door. That can lead to a lot of excitement and probably excitement we didn't need at the time, but really cool story. And I can totally identify with you guys, especially with the mama bear and the 2 cubs. I've run into something very similar on the Saddle Trail in the past. So I know that story all too well. So when I think of the Grewingk Glacier, it's one of the most notable features for anyone who's pulling into Homer. You come up on Baycrest and you kind of look over Ketchimak Bay and you see the glacier. It's almost like iconic, in terms of those sights that you see from Homer. So in your guys' time here, and offering the tours and just spending time around Ketchimak Bay, can you kind of note like some of the changes that you've seen around the glacier and the landscape over the past several years? Have you noticed a change in the calving? Have you noticed a change in the lake or maybe the distance across the lake to the glacier, that sort of thing?
Oh yeah, no, definitely noticeable. I think that's one thing. Every year I come up here and you do really see a change, which is pretty wild. You don't really see from year to year that you'll be able to see it, but you really can. And just the other day we were going through some of the we have some old VHS tapes across there, if you remember those. And we found a VHS of the first time that my dad had gone up to the lake, and he was the first person up there kayaking on that lake. And it was really cool to see the difference. That was 1996, I think, is when that video was taken. And, just the difference of where the face of the glacier is now to where it was back then. It's gone back almost a mile, I think, in the past, 40 years. It's gone back. And so it's a noticeable distance that it's receded in the past. And Spencer and I always kind of say, we grumble and complain a little bit every single year because, like, man,
every single year we got to paddle further and further, make the day like 30 minutes longer just to get the same view. But yeah, as far as the glacier goes, I think another thing that a lot of people don't realize is with that state park specifically, the Ketchikan Bay State Park, which was Alaska's first state park, founded in 1970. Pretty cool. It's gotten way more accessible to the general public, even in the past probably 10, 15 years. They just put in that new trail 5 years ago, completely redid the trailhead and on the whole. I wouldn't say they made it quite wheelchair accessible, but I think that's what they were kind of going for. Not quite paved it, but made it really, really accessible. And I think with that, and just with the influx of people coming to Homer, you get a lot more hikers and people just who don't really know the area coming into and hiking, which, don't get me wrong, I love it. It's a beautiful place, and I so desperately want everybody to see Grewingk Glacier and the beauty that Alaska has to offer. But unfortunately, with that, you get a lot more people who don't really care. I don't want to say not more of ignorance. I think they don't really know. As local guides, and both of us were born in Homer, we kind of have a more intimate relationship with the wilderness here, and so it's like we abide by the leave no trace, all the stuff kind of that you learn growing up here, which unfortunately not a lot of people tend to really take into that account. So unfortunately, it has been a lot more trash that Spenser and I pick up and just picking up after other people, which is why that kind of Spenser and I, even if it's not with us, we totally encourage people to kind of come with either locals or another guiding outfitters, just people that know the area and can kind of know places to go and not to go, and not just for your safety, but just to kind of take care of the state park as well.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Back in Minnesota, there's an area called Boundary Waters Canoe Area, and it's this very pristine wilderness area, and no motors and all those sorts of things, and it's really like a leave no trace type of situation, and that's how we treat the state park here in Homer as well. As we do everything we can to take everything we bring out, and we're just like you, we grab trash, whatever that happens to show up. It's just the right thing to do, and I certainly encourage everyone that's doing the hike and preparing for it to be prepared for that, right? To bring everything out with you. That's a good point.
And you just want people to have this beautiful, pristine Alaskan wilderness, whether if that means I got to pick up a few extra pieces of trash, I don't mind it. It is unfortunate, but just something that, I encourage people to kind of be more aware of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. So to help the portion of the audience that's maybe less familiar with what we're talking about right here, can you maybe outline, what kind of tours you offer, and maybe walk us through, like, start to finish, this is what a tour is going to look like with you guys?
Yeah, totally. So we offer what is called the Hike-in Glacier Kayaking Tour, which is kind of has a lot of the description right there in the name. But what it looks like, depending on if you're already staying at our place, we're located. Our base of operations is right at the bottom of the trailhead, the saddle trail that connects to the Glacier Lake, and so we're kind of in a unique area where we have a private trail that connects to more than 70 miles of state park trail, which is super, super epic. And so if you're staying with us, we'll leave from the lodge. But if you're just coming in for a day trip, what we'll do is we'll actually come to Homer, pick you guys up. It's a beautiful ride across Ketchikan Bay. So, more often than not, you see plenty of otters, puffins, all the different sea life and the seabirds that are there. We'll get to the lodge, and from there, we'll hike about 2.5 miles to the Glacier Lake itself, which is super cool because you hike through two separate kind of different biomes there. You have the coastal forest, and then once you get up and over that, you're hiking through the glacial outwash plain, which is where the glacier actually came through and carved out that entire valley. There you're walking through places that 300 years ago would have been completely covered in ice, which is really cool to think about. Once we get to the kayaks themselves, we get everyone geared up, and then we take off and go paddling on the lake there, which is another thing that Jensen was talking about. With it getting more busy nowadays, it really is awesome to kind of get away from the crowds, because no matter how many people are up there hiking, we get to kind of really just leave them behind and go paddle into the place where there are no trails. And so that's a lot of fun. And we like to talk about how kind of one of the goals of the day is really just to get to an epic lunch spot. Like that is kind of, we'll go around the corner with a beautiful view of the glacier and get out there, and there we'll be able to overlook the glacier and just really enjoy that sandwich a lot more than you would be enjoying it anywhere else. And so from there, we kind of play around in that area before heading back, kind of doing the whole thing in reverse. It's a long day, and so you definitely earned your dinner at the end of it. And so people that are not staying with us, they'll go back into town, and we drop them right back off at the spit. But if you're staying with us, the nice thing about it is you got plenty of things to do when you get back to the lodge. From we have a covered fire pit as well as a wood stove sauna, and so you can really do anything. It's a beautiful, beautiful location to really decompress after that trip. And so, yeah, that's kind of what the day ends up looking like.
So when you say you go around the corner and then you find a spot to do lunch, do you typically set up on one of the beaches around that corner, or do you end up going up on the rock, or does it kind of depend on who you have with and how willing they are?
It does definitely depend on kind of I'd say the group that you got with you. Some people, kind of want a more relaxed day, which, we're more than happy. Spencer and I, we try to make the trip as enjoyable and as fun for whoever's with us. So if that means, pushing a little harder and, going a little closer and finding a cool, cool lunch spot closer up to the glacier, or if it just means kind of having a more casual paddle up, there's this really nice point. We call it Postcard Point. It's kind of the closest one to where we launched the kayaks. And if it just means standing there or stopping there and getting that kind of more panoramic view of the glacier, kind of just depends, like I said, who's with us. But Spencer and I are very malleable. We just, try to make it as fun and enjoyable as we can for whoever is with us.
Very cool. I know exactly which point you're talking about. And the cool part, I've been out there just once so far this spring, but there's a lot of icebergs built up on the end of that point right now. So it's a really cool spot because you can kind of paddle around the point, kind of get closer to those icebergs, and then make your way closer to the glacier. It's really cool right now, just the way the whole scene is set up.
And that's the cool thing. There's tons of ice usually in that glacier or in that lake. And even if you don't get the opportunity to paddle like all the way up to the face of it, you still paddle through these, a plethora of this iceberg or these iceberg shields in the water and meander through those big chunks of ice. It's a really cool day.
Get all those Instagram photos,
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it right there. That's cool. So you probably have a fairly diverse crowd that joins you. I mean, in terms of age and ability and all that sort of thing. So can you maybe tell us, you kind of talked about how far you're going to hike. How far or how long do you tend to paddle? How steep is the hike? Is it one of these things where you got to be a mountaineer to do this thing, or do you just got to be able to walk trails, that sort of thing? And then what do you tell folks to bring in terms of gear? Do you recommend certain like hiking boots or rain gear, those sorts of things? Maybe just give us an outline of what folks should expect for exertion, as well as what they should bring to make sure they're prepared.
Yeah, totally. We like to kind of market it as a moderate to strenuous hike, because it is, at some parts a little bit more difficult than others. It starts off with about 300 feet of elevation that you tackle in about 15 to 20 minutes. So that is probably the most strenuous part, where you really are just going uphill. Once you're up and over that, the next part about it is it really is kind of this flat downhill for the rest of the day. And so, and I was also going to say, Spencer and I, on that really steep, strenuous part, we have our spiels and our jokes and the history kind of that we like to give. So even during the hardest part of the trail, we tend to take it a little slower and talk about the history of Halibut Cove and Ketchikan Bay and Alaska, even just to kind of give people and ourselves, the chance to catch our breaths. Because, we do this all day, but still sometimes we're like huffing and puffing up that trail too. Yeah. And they'll also, anyone that comes with us will get the opportunity to hear all of our pre-scripted jokes that we have been working on for the past 20 years. And so we're very proud of them, even if some of them are pretty bad. And so like we definitely enjoy having a good time and making sure we're not, pushing anyone too hard. But it is something that we would
average physical.
Yeah.
You want to be able to, it is a 5-mile hike in total. So the hiking is split up between the kayaking. So you kind of get a chance to rest your legs while you exert that upper body strength in the kayaking. But there is also kind of not a strict schedule, but we do try to see, everything. We got to see the glacier and everything like that. And so if you want to go a little slower, the trip probably is not for you, because we do, have things and activities that we like to accomplish during that day.
Glaciers to see, icebergs to look at, so.
And then as far as things to bring, we provide pretty much all the technical gear that, from waterproof boots, gloves, life jackets, paddles, the kayaks, of course. Biggest thing we tell people to bring is just like layers, because even if it's like a bright, sunny, gorgeous day in Homer, you get up and over that ridge and you're, especially around that point, and that wind is blowing right off the glacier, and it can get real chilly real quickly when you're on those kayaks. So even if you don't end up necessarily needing to use them, it's better to have them and not need them than just because it really can make or break the trip. If you're up there and you're cold on the kayaks and on the water, it can be not a fun time. And so we always tell people, bring lots of extra clothing, bring a good, set of rain gear, and then like a good set of hiking shoes, because, it is some of the areas can be pretty strenuous on the trail. And then even when you get down to the glacier lake itself, you're walking on this kind of gravelly, or just gravel that can move under you. So you want a good set of sturdy shoes. And I think then that's pretty much. Oh, and then lunch. Bring your lunch.
Lunch and plenty of water.
Yeah, plenty of water, since you don't want to be dehydrated on that trail. But I think that's all the stuff that you need to bring.
Yeah, it's one of the few trips where you can go from sweating, to absolutely freezing cold pretty quickly there within a pretty quick span, just from being in front of a glacier to hiking with the sun beating down at you. So.
Yeah, and I can speak from experience, because literally 2 weeks ago, I went from sweating going up the saddle trail and up the switchbacks to getting back there paddling and then being like, I'm cold. Thankfully I had more gear with me. And to provide a little more perspective between our friends and family, we've actually had a 5-year-old do the hike and make it all the way out there, paddle around a little bit, and then come back. And we've had a 75-year-old in our group. So, I mean, I think a lot of people can do it, as long as you have, like that average ability and the will to do it, right? You have to be willing to get up that 300-foot rise in elevation and then hike your way back there and put some time in paddling as well. So I think if you want to do it and you're, an average ability, you're going to be able to do it.
Yeah. And it's not like Spenser and I are, pushing you up an 8-mile, incline. Like you said, we've had the same thing where we've had really young people do it, and I think probably the oldest we've taken is like 80. I definitely think there's been some 80-year-olds in my guiding career that I've taken up there. So it definitely is that if you want to do it, then you're gonna have no issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Well, that's a good overview. I appreciate that, and kind of giving folks some insight on what to have with and what to be wearing. The one other thing I would say is, when you get back by that glacier and that cold air kind of comes blowing off of it, your camera batteries will die really fast. So one thing I tell people is make sure your gear is all totally charged up. And if you have spare batteries, bring them with just in case. You don't want to make your way all the way to that point and not get that epic photo for your Instagram or whatever you're going to post on. So just make sure you're prepared from that standpoint too.
Along with a camera strap. The lake at its deepest part is about 400 feet. And so if you drop a camera in there, you're not getting that.
Okay, that is good advice. So for you personally, right, you've done this trip many times. What's your favorite part of the tours that you're going on and taking people on? What keeps you showing up to your office alongside the Grewingk Glacier each and every day throughout the summer?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, for me, it's kind of a more common, not a common answer, but it really is the people that you end up taking up there. I mean, you get to meet people from all over the world, and the people that want to, hike and paddle on a glacier lake are usually a pretty cool group of people. And so it really is a lot of fun. We get to get up there every day. It's a beautiful view, and I truly never get sick of it. But something that makes it just all the better is getting up there and just having a blast with people. I'll have some days where I just wanted to keep on going because I'm just having so much fun up there, and it's, like the whatever 100th time I've done that trip. And so I just love getting there and just get to experience it with people who really appreciate it for what it is. People who are just absolutely blown away by the beauty of it. That is something that it makes me feel really good because that's how I feel about it. And so when someone else, we can kind of bond over that shared experience of just like, wow, like nature is just incredible. Like this is such a beautiful experience just to be a part of. So, yeah.
I'd say the same thing for me too. It's the conversations that you get to have with people from all over the world and all over the states, and just you really get some really cool conversations and really cool people. And as Spencer was saying, definitely that we've done this trip, hundreds of times, and it's the same thing in terms of the glacier still there, the mountains, everything. But kind of for a lot of people, it's their, it's like a life goal or a life dream to go to Alaska and see this stuff. And so kind of getting that fresh perspective and getting to live vicariously through people who are seeing this for the very first time. It's like, dang, this truly is like why I do this, is so that I can share this experience that like I love with other people who, this might be their only time ever that, they get to see it. I think also too, which is really cool, like, Spencer and I brothers, we're 2 of 6 of the fam, of the crew, the clan has grown up here in Homer. And like we were kind of saying earlier, my dad founded this business. He was the first one that started it up there in 1996, kind of pioneered the whole glacier kayaking in that area. And he took, man, I don't know, probably thousands of people in his career of guiding there. And unfortunately, he ended up passing away from cancer in 2020. And one of the things that like we really are so honored to be able to do is just continue his legacy of him crafting this awesome experience and this awesome trip to share with other people, and just seeing how much fun he had with it. We kind of get to continue his legacy and continue, sharing the beauty of Alaska with people, and start and continuing on what he started back so long ago. And yeah, it's just a good way to keep him kind of like in the loop and share that with other people, being like, yeah, my dad or our dad was the first one to, start this, and we're going to continue on doing it because he loved it and we love doing the same thing. So keeps us coming back.
So great story, guys. Appreciate that. So for all the folks out there who are considering the trip to Alaska, right, and you even mentioned it before, this could be a trip of a lifetime for someone, and they're contemplating taking your tour. What's your pitch? What's your pitch to take the tour with Spenser and Jensen and go out there, see this glacier, and do it?
Yeah, well, like you said, Lucas, we've kind of talked a lot about what we're doing and where we are, and it really is just a once in a lifetime experience in terms of beauty. But I think another thing that really sells us is we like to have a good time, and all of our guides, not just me and Jensen, we really do love what we do. We love people, and I think what can really make or break an experience is the people that you're with. I think a lot of people, will go up and do amazing tours, but they just don't end up, having as good of a time because the tour guide, wasn't really enjoying it. They could tell that they weren't in it, like their heart wasn't in it, or they're just doing it for a paycheck. And so one thing that we really do pride ourselves in is just kind of the relational aspect of guiding in Alaska. It's more than just a hike in a kayak in a really beautiful place, which that almost should be enough in itself. But we like to add that cherry on top of really trying to enjoy it. And yeah.
Very, very cool. And I can vouch for you guys because we've had a lot of conversation outside of what's being recorded. These guys are a good time. We've we've had a lot of laughs that aren't part of the podcast. So I can totally vouch for you. People are going to have a good time if you guys take them on this trip. It's going to be probably some work. But at the same time, just based on, the stories that we've shared, you guys have a lot to share. Not to mention, it sounds like you have a lot of really good, bad jokes to tell, which is also super good. It's important on these sort of things to lighten the mood as you're working your way up the saddle trail and those sorts of things. So very awesome. So super informative and interesting. I appreciate you guys telling us more about the tour that you offer. I'll have a link to your page, certainly in the description, so folks can go from the podcast directly to your site, check it out, and hopefully book that trip when they come to Alaska.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, Lucas, for having us on, and this has been an absolute pleasure. And we hope to, take everybody who comes up to Alaska this summer on an awesome tour.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, Lucas.
Wow, I really appreciate Spenser and Jensen joining me today on the podcast. They provided a lot of good information about the tours they offer, as well as the accommodations they have back in Halibut Cove. If you're making the trip up to Homer, I would certainly recommend you take their tour. Thanks again for joining us today. Really appreciate you taking in the podcast. And remember, if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel, Discovering the Last Frontier. Thank you.